Princess Rhys Targaryen.
Thank you, Sir Laurent.
Episode 9 and 10 I've always considered sister episodes, in that episode 9 is primarily Alicent's story and episode 10 is primarily Rhaenyra's story.
Viserys is dead.
Rhaenys brings the news and breaks it to Rhaenyra, who not only has to deal with the news that her father is dead, but to hear that Alicent has, in the same breath, usurped her throne from her.
And it's really the same or very similar period of time, a similar inciting incident, which is the death of the king, and how these two very different characters tackle it. Just at the precipice of this moment where she might finally take her place in the thing that she has been trained to do all her life, it's taken from her seemingly without reason by her childhood friend, and I think that sends her into a chaotic spiral. And moreover, she's pregnant.
The birth in 10 is a very different animal to the birth in 6. Rhaenyra has waited a lifetime for a letter, essentially, a letter that says, your father has passed, and so now it's you. And, I mean, that's like a dominating prospect and expectation, and it finally comes, and she's in labor, and she's essentially, you know, house-ridden. And I think there's a deep sense of injustice. The thing that she had always fought so hard against, about being the kind of the mother, the feted mother, is exactly where she finds herself at the point where the most important conversations of her life are happening.
This is really the theme that Miguel wanted, was war, the battlefield. And so she's at war with herself, with her own body.
Whatever claim remains to me, you are now its heir. Naught is to be done but by my command.
There's a lot of emotional complexity in terms of, you know, this war that's starting without her and that's tearing her apart, literally tearing her apart.
It's a kind of, you know, the worst point the low point in Rhaenyra's trajectory turns into the high point as she cremates her unborn child and, in a way, become her father.
Her people gather around her, and her father's crown arrives in the hands of Sir Eric Cargill. And he kneels to her, and Daemon puts the crown on her head and calls her queen. At Rhaenyra's kind of lowest point of faith and belief, believing that no one is going to follow her because she's a queen and she's a woman, they kneel to her and call her queen.
Queen Rhaenyra Targaryen, first of her name.
Daemon announces her for the first time, and she meets her black councilman. I had a really nice chat, actually, with Greg Gaetanis, who's the director on 10, about the sort of surreality of that first encounter, of stepping into, you know, the shoes of a leader, of this ruling queen. To what extent is one able to wear that crown and believe in one's new role and take charge of a group of men who are now looking to you for leadership?
What is our standing?
We have 30 knights, 100 crossbow men, and 300 men-at-arms.
Really, once war is coming, you see Daemon preparing for war, and this is really where the domestic split in 10 is that, you know, Daemon wants war and Rhaenyra wants to hold the realm together at whatever cost. That was what she was charged with. That power struggle is alive and well, all inside of a marriage.
This episode is largely about, you know, Matt and Emma and their performances and bringing Daemon and Rhaenyra to life. The crux of this argument here is the different way in which Daemon sees the world from other people in his family, and Rhaenyra is very much her father's daughter. She has a bit of the punk rock of Daemon Targaryen, but the way she approaches her duty as sovereign, I think, is much more in line with Viserys.
Are you not angry?
Well, I should declare war because I'm angry.
No, because it's your duty as queen to crush rebellion.
She makes the point that I don't want to rule over ash and bone. I don't think Daemon wants to put the whole realm to the torch either, but I think he's willing to suffer a good bit of bloodshed to see the High Tower's line probably ended and them removed from power.
I had no other place to turn. I'd lost everything.
We lost Corlys. We.
When he wakes up in Dragonstone, he's surprised because he's alive. And then, of course, the woman he loves is there next to him, and he's like, I can't believe I
put you through all this nonsense. My stupid ambition, which my brother also had, and that's why he's dead, and that's why we've lost our children. Well, I'm done. You were right. It's taken me all of this time and all these deaths to realize it, but yeah, it's not that important. And then she surprises him.
That girl destroys everything she touches.
That girl is holding the realm together at present. Every man standing round the painted table urges her to plunge the realm into war. Rhaenyra is the only one who's demonstrated restraint. She treads a very ambiguous pathway about whose team she's on. I think having suspected and hated Rhaenyra, she felt she had been responsible for her son's death. In the journey through episodes 9 and 10, she actually starts to see her as a person. Her allegiance, her heart shifts, so that by the end of episode 10, she steps in and she makes a decision to stand up and announce that she will go and get involved in the fight. I should take Maelys and patrol the gullet myself.
If we're to have enough swords to surround King's Landing, we must first secure the support of Winterfell, the Eyrie, and Storm's End.
I'll prepare the ravens, Your Grace.
We should bear those messages. Dragons can fly faster than ravens, and they're more convincing. Send us.
I think it's quite heartrending for Rhaenyra because she has to look at her boys and she has to start seeing them as men for the first time. I think despite her questions about motherhood, what she discovers in having children is that she gets to build a tribe of her own and actually finds a space where she feels free to be herself. And that's in this family unit that she builds. And I think sending her sons away is the start of the end of that stability.
When Luke shows up, he's surprised to find Vhagar parked there in the courtyard, but he's been sent in peace, and he's trusting in the respect of guest rights and all that, all the things that we learned go to hell in the world of Game of Thrones. It's really a bullying sequence, a torture sequence, a chase sequence where Luke is trying to escape. No real hope of Arrax fighting Vhagar and anything good happening at the end of that. But Luke relies on the speed of his dragon and the maneuverability to try to escape, and just when it seems like he has, Vhagar is there waiting for him. I think what you're seeing in that moment there is the last vestiges of the little boy that's left in Aemond, and maybe he was trying to scare Luke, but I don't think ultimately he intended to kill him. But now he's done it, and he has to decide whether or not he's going to own it in his travel back to King's Landing. Because obviously, if the usurping of the throne and them crowning Aegon in the Dragon Pit wasn't the start of the war, certainly killing one of the Queen's sons is.
I think anyone who is wronged like Aemond was and has his eye taken out, you're gonna feel some sort of hatred, whether it's subconsciously or consciously, towards the person who did it. But what Aemond ends up doing in the skies above Storm's End ultimately starts the domino effect of the Dance of the Dragons.
What I think is really affecting about it, within a series that, there's a lot of loss, there's a lot of death, there is lots of pain of different sorts, and yet somehow I think this moves the goalposts for suffering. Once you've lost both your parents and you've lost a lover, maybe you think you know grief. And then I think what's so awful is that losing Luke tells her she knows nothing about grief and completely changes her outlook on the world going forward.